second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Hello and welcome to episode 27 of PvA Radio. I'm your host, Luke Croft. Joining me, as always, the 7th DPS for the San Francisco Shock, ladies and gentlemen, Larry Hunt.
Oh, man. I feel like I could maybe pull it off for the Shanghai Dragons, but...
Hey, the Dragons are going to be good this year, man. They're going to be better this year. There are teams.
To go but up.
There are teams that are going to be worse than Shanghai this year. So, but that's a little snippet, a little preview, a little taste, appetizer, if you will, for a much lengthier conversation that we're going to be having. But seriously, the San Francisco Shock have like 6 DPS on their roster. So, anyway,
they're running Golds, huh?
Yeah, dude, running that Golds composition. Anyway, Cody is not with us today. As you can see, we are joined by this gif of Geralt of Rivia. So, that's what
the resemblance is uncanny.
Well, that's what happens when you just can't be bothered to make a new overlay that only includes the two of us. So, I'm excited for the next episode you miss and whatever gif I'm going to decide to use for that episode as well. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm pretty good. I turned 30 this week, so
the big 3. Nice. And we ate at this awesome burger joint called Me's in Danville.
So good.
Dude, I was like, I'm always a little hesitant on people's food recommendations when it comes to things like that. I mean, I don't know why. I have no reason not to believe you, but I just always am, because like I'm one of those people, like when I'm going to go to downtown Danville, there's a couple places I like to hit up. Machos, the Taco and Tequila Bar, the Golden Leaf Bistro for brunch. And I just had never been to Me's before. And so when it was your birthday, so you get to pick where we go. And I was very glad you did get to pick, because at first your wife was like, I think Larry may want to go to Outback. And I was like, it's his birthday.
Well, what was underneath that was we have gift cards to Outback.
Hey, I totally understand that life. But Me's was worth every penny that we spent. And Lauren and I spent quite a few pennies.
Yeah, it's not a cheap place. It's only like the second time I've been there. But I'd go there all the time if I had more money.
Did you do anything awesome? Anything else awesome for your birthday other than hanging out with me?
I had a bunch of people over on Saturday, and we ate cheesecake. So that was pretty cool. Ate cheesecake, drank delicious coffee. My wife bought me a really interesting gift.
Okay, yeah.
Have you heard about this already?
No, I haven't. I haven't talked to you since Friday.
All right, so apparently, so you know this. Our listeners don't know this. When I get super exhausted and I fight going to sleep, or if I've had Benadryl and I'm fighting going to sleep, I'll just start rambling in my sleep. And in one of my sleep rambles, I lamented the fact that I had never owned a Furby because my parents told me it was a girl's toy. So my wife bought me a Chewbacca Furby for my birthday.
Well, wasn't there, I mean, look, Christians hated everything when we were growing up. But wasn't there something particularly about the background of Furbies that kept a lot of Christian households from purchasing them?
There was like some weird. They creeped people out, and that was fair. But Christians there were some groups of Christians that took it to a whole new level. But I suspect that the Furby thing was more like the Red Cup guy. It was like a tiny little portion of Christians that got upset. That wasn't a thing in my house.
Right. Okay.
My sister had a Furby.
Oh.
And now I do too.
So, I mean, look, knowing that your wife doesn't listen to this show, and I'll ask this in a specific way as possible, and you can give a brief answer in case she's listening. Was this a gift that you got, and it was like one of those oddly, I'm excited for this kind of gifts, or was it just one of those, oh, thank you?
Well, she talked to me about me asking for it, and I was like, is that even a thing? Does a Chewbacca Furby exist? And she's like, yeah, I looked it up. They're like $80. And I was like,
oh, gosh.
So when she ordered one, like at first I was like, we're gonna talk about this later. It's a lot of money to spend on something worthless. But she ordered a used one and got it for like $25.
Oh, okay. So it didn't come in the original packaging.
No, it came in like they crammed it in the economy envelope that you can buy at the post office.
Yeah, I'm looking at these things right now. I need to set up screen share so that when I pull things like this up, I can show it to the stream. But yeah, dude, I have 3 sisters, and they all had Furbies growing up too. These things always creep me out because like they had the little tongue like you could press down and it would talk to you and like make noises because you were feeding it or whatever. And yeah, I'm not about that life. One Christmas, my brother's wife got him this bottle of crystal clear Pepsi, and like this was before they re-released crystal clear Pepsi. So this was, this was her going online and spending like $50 on this old glass bottle of crystal clear Pepsi, and it was one of those clear. Like my brother opened it and was like, "Cool." This is cool. Because it's like, what am I going to do with this 15-year-old soda?
Yeah. Now, had she not talked to me beforehand, I would have been very confused because I didn't remember this conversation we had.
Mm-hmm.
but you know, I wasn't really longing for a Furby, but it was a nice sentimental gift.
Yeah. Well, that's well, and the Chewbacca thing makes it better. It'd have been worse if it was just like, hey, here's a pink Furby.
Yeah.
So, well, that's cool. Well, happy birthday, my dude. I know we got to spend your birthday together, but on the podcast, I'm wishing you a happy 34th birthday. So.
Oh, well, Dynafy.
This is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week, and each of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories of that week to the table. Then we have an in-depth discussion about it. Consider it your collaborative audio feature article, guys. We have a jam-packed episode today that I'm very, very excited about. 2 topics that I think we're going to probably go the same amount of time that we would if Cody was here. So, but before we jump into our topics, Larry, I'm going to ask you, what have you been playing?
I played exactly 3 rounds of Overwatch this week.
The 3 worst rounds of Overwatch to ever be played.
We literally had a thrower in every one of those 3 rounds.
And look, let me clarify for our listeners and for anybody who doesn't know. Like, we are not the kind of people who blame people and call people throwers just because they're playing poorly. Like, look, we play with a lot of bad people. In fact, sometimes we're the bad people other people are playing with. But these people, like, were legit throwing, like, doing legit things.
Jumping off the map, standing in spawn just emoting rather than helping us capture a point.
Mm-hmm. So, three games in a row. It was two times it was people throwing themselves off the map, and then one time of someone standing in spawn. And it's just, I don't get it, man. Like, what position? They're not in voice chat, so they're not getting tilted by us. You know, we're filling, so we're letting them pick first, right? Like, so yeah. I don't understand why people would join a mode just to completely ruin it for people that are playing it.
I don't know. But I wouldn't have played a lot of Overwatch anyway this week because Apex Legends came out and I am hooked on that game, man. I've stayed up multiple times till like 2 in the morning this past week, which used to be my norm, but the older I get, the less normal that is.
Yeah, I can't even imagine doing that anymore. So we don't need to talk about that a lot now because we're going to be talking about it a lot here in like 3 minutes. So Let me talk about what I've been playing. I also played a little bit of Overwatch. I'm getting real hyped for Season 2, which is coming up on Thursday, which is going to be another large portion of our show today. So we won't get too into that either. Played some Apex Legends with my boy Larry over there. Also played a little on PC as well, and I'm having a good time over there as well. I've joined some Discords that, like, I'm falling in love with Discord, man. Like, joining communities and just engaging with people who are just kind of chill and into the same things that I am. It's like Reddit with the communities without all the baggage that comes being a part of Reddit. So there's a little less anonymity within it, and I know I'm talking about something that people have been on the train of for a long time now, but yeah, I've fallen in love with Discord. Speaking of things that have been out for a long time that I'm just now getting in on the hype of, I started playing League of Legends this weekend.
Yeah,
like a big fucking nerd. And first of all, that game is just immensely complicated. There's like 125 characters. So I'm really just learning the basics of it. And the reason is I started watching professional League of Legends because I just was really kind of enamored with the production quality of it, which is something that, like, that's the reason I got into Overwatch. I think I told this story last week, but that's the reason I got into Overwatch League, was because there was this, like, studio level, professional sports level production value to the product that I was just immediately drawn to as somebody who grew up as a fan of sports. And so, yeah, I started watching League of Legends, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do two things. I'm going to pick a favorite team, and I'm going to start playing this, just to kind of get a sense and an idea. So I picked 100 Thieves as my favorite team because, number one, I think it's just a cool name, and number two, they apparently had a really rough start to the season, and they're like on a 3-game winning streak now, which is pretty cool. So, and then started playing this weekend, and I'm like, bot lane, top lane, jungler. I don't know what any of these words mean. But I'm having a good time with it. I think, the whole MOBA genre is like kind of made to be like an RTS. And it reminds me not anything close except for just kind of the view and the play style of like Halo Wars, which is one of the only RTSs that I could really get into. And it's just because I think the controls are pretty intuitive. And I guess playing on PC really helps on that, like where you got a whole keyboard of stuff at your disposal. So, yeah, I'm a huge nerd now.
League back in the day, back in my college days, and I played it for a few months, and I just got into it as I was preparing to graduate and go get a job, so it just didn't stick for me. But I got decent at the act of playing it and understanding what I should be doing. The place where it just got too complicated for me was the crafting of the items.
Yeah, I don't understand how, like, I guess I'm coming from Overwatch, and Overwatch is so fast paced, and like when I'm watching League of Legends, it's such a slow game. It's not till like 20-25 minutes into it where people are starting to get where you're starting to see like your first team fights and stuff, and so I'm trying to learn how to like take my time and really kind of be intentional with the builds. Well, I'm trying to learn the basics of the game first and foremost, but like it's really clear that you got to take your time and really consider the builds that you're going after for your characters. And like I'm reading about, my goal is to learn like one new character each time I sit down to play, and just like go and read guides and stuff like that to get a feel for them. So yeah, I feel like a huge fucking nerd though.
Well, you are.
Hey, your PC can probably run some League of Legends. You want to come join me? He does.
You're right.
He does. He never thought of it, ladies and gentlemen. He says with elation. All right, guys. Well, let's jump right into our topics. Larry, what are you bringing to the table this week? Fallout 76.
So we talked last week about the surprise launch of Apex Legends, and the ensuing week just has been crazy success for that game. That game blew up. I remember it hit 1 million players within 24 hours, and within 3 days it had hit 10 million players.
Did you see the feat it reached today?
No.
25 million players.
So in a week, they've hit 25 million.
Insane, with absolutely no marketing lead up.
Like I don't know if you remember. Several shows back, we talked about how people were able to accidentally extrapolate how many unique players are playing each game on the PlayStation.
Yes,
but those numbers, like, it's getting close to, you got to divide it among the platforms, and we don't know what that looks like necessarily. But even when you get into factoring in dividing among platforms, it looks like this game's going to wind up hitting the top 10 PlayStation games as far as unique users. Because number 10, if I remember, was 15 million unique users. So this game blowing up. And it's no surprise. I think the marketing, like, they made a great decision in not marketing this game just letting it speak for itself, not defending against you're releasing another battle royale. They're just like, here it is, play it. And the game definitely spoke for itself. One of the smoothest launches of this generation. I've had no issues with that game except day 2 they pushed an update to the marketplace, which caused some frame rate issues, which were resolved quickly. Like the game's been solid. There's a little bit of a disconnecting after the game's over issue, but there's no major issue with this game. It runs smooth, gameplay is awesome, and the other thing that really lent to its success was it was instantly really popular to stream, and you even had Ninja, who, you know, he's the Fortnite streamer, right? He even got on and streamed some Apex, so that was kind of a big deal. So yeah, you want to add anything about the success of this game?
Yeah, I do want to caveat that. Actually, never mind. I don't want to caveat that at all. I was going to bring something up that I saw, and now I'm looking and making sure I can verify it, and I can't. So, no, it is a little insane, like the popularity and the success. Like 25 million. I had to I saw the tweet that Respawn put out about it, and I was like, I gotta watch this little video they've put out a couple times to make sure I'm like reading this correctly, because 25 million players in a week is just insane. But yeah, they did get, you know, the biggest streamers in the world were playing it. Like, there's even a lot of popular Overwatch streamers that I've been watching who have been switching over to play Apex Legends, and especially now that like Overwatch League stuff's starting to roll around and they don't want to compete with Overwatch League, they're transferring over to a different game. And so yeah, like it's the extreme version of what Bethesda did with Fallout 4, right? Like they announced Fallout 4 just a few months before they were going to release it, and this game is like made by a big AAA studio and with absolutely no lead up or announcement. There were some leaks right before it, but outside of that, like, just dropped and found an immediate audience. And, you know, I think it does enough to feel familiar to people who like battle royales, but enough to feel really different to where, you know, people want to talk about it and want to abandon the games that they're playing. Like, I see a lot of people comparing the streaming success to what was happening with like Blackout, but this feels different somehow, and I can't really put my finger on why it is, or, you know, put it into words why it feels different. But this does feel like something with a lot of sticking power, where I think like with Call of Duty, with Blackout, it was more of just like, this is the first time we're seeing a huge major like AAA player get into this space. It was the first really large like $60 battle royale mode, and I think people just wanted to see how it was executed. And I think that they became enamored with the smooth gunplay and, you know, some of the things that just make Call of Duty great. But at the end of the day, it didn't quite have the sticking power, and, you know, the other major battle royales came back. But this feels different. Like, it feels a little more permanent.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we talked about it a bit last week, but I just think that this game it's not just that they put another battle royale yet, but it's not just that they've put another battle royale out, but they've added to it. They've added something to the genre, and I think that it's different enough that it is going to stick, where Blackout didn't really have that staying power. Because Call of Duty, they just did the same thing but smoother, better, which is good. But Respawn here, I think they've done it smoother and better, and also added some really cool things to it.
Yeah.
So we've got this big rock that's been thrown into the gaming pond right now, and I just want to talk about the ripples that this is possibly going to have. And where I want to start is with Respawn and Titanfall. What do you think this means for the future of Respawn, for the future of Titanfall? Do you think this is going to affect whether we see a Titanfall 3? What are you thinking?
It's tough, man. Like, Titanfall never had 25 million players, right? And I think that in order for a game like Apex Legends to thrive, it needs just constant support, fresh content, constantly being pushed out. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is the team, the same exact team that was working on Titanfall, correct?
I'm fairly certain, but
So-
not 100%.
So in order for there to be another Titanfall game, right, you're going to have to either A, remove the Apex Legends team from what the work they're doing on Apex Legends and start them working on a Titanfall sequel, or bring in another team to work on a Titanfall sequel and then divide the Apex Legends team up so that there's some Titanfall veterans working on it. And it's just like, why are you not just going to completely roll with this model when we still haven't seen like the complete fulfillment of their monetization strategy as far as like the battle pass and stuff like that goes? You know, we haven't even seen the heights of the financial success of this game. We may have reached peak viewership on Twitch. We may have reached peak concurrent players or something like that. But really, the success of this game is going to depend on the legs that the post-launch support can give it, especially because there was no pre-launch like marketing push or anything like that. So they do have the money of EA behind them to where they can expand their team to support both. But I am afraid that I'm not afraid. I have a hard time seeing a future where they're like, well, Apex Legends is so successful, let's move away from it and return to something we've already done.
Yeah. It's sort of like if Fortnite had gone back to what Fortnite was before they added a Battle Royale to it. This thing blew up, and it'll be a while before they get around to Titanfall, if they get around to it. And that's only going to come when they can bring another team on, really, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of Titanfall fans are kind of lamenting the fact that we're probably, essentially Titanfall 3 is delayed indefinitely with this game launching the way it has and being so successful. And I've seen a lot of like angry comments of, I didn't want this, I just wanted them to drop Titanfall 3. But the way Titanfall and Titanfall 2 were handled, like Titanfall 3 was not in a position where it could be successful. You had two games that were like, people loved them who played them, but very few people really bought the game and played it.
Mm-hmm.
And the odds of them releasing a third game and people suddenly deciding to jump in when they didn't jump in on the first two, like Respawn was known, but not known enough that they were going to be able to sell a third game just on their name. And so it's kind of I feel like this Apex Legends success is kind of a catch-22 of it gives Respawn the visibility of, now you've got people playing a Respawn game and they're seeing what this company's capable of. And it would make them more likely, I think, to play Titanfall 3 when it does come out. But it's so successful and going to demand so much of their attention that it's going to be a while before we see that game, if we ever see that game.
Yeah, and look, we've got 25 million people who have played Apex Legends now, and we've only, I mean, what was Titanfall 2's peak number probably, you know?
I have no
Like
idea.
a fraction of that, right? So what you see is that there's probably, I mean, let's just call it 20 million, right? There's probably 20 million people interested in playing Apex Legends who have, you know, put action behind those desires and are playing it, who have no desire to play what was the old Titanfall, you know?
Yeah.
And so it makes no sense to say like, all right, well, we're going to return to this little niche thing that we've got over here and leave behind the super successful thing that we've got over here. So I think it's just wishful thinking. I think you'll start to maybe see some more Titanfall ideas trickle into Apex Legends, but I don't think we're going to anytime soon see Titanfall 3.
Yeah. One interesting thing I wanted to throw out in this conversation was the number of players playing Titanfall 2 on a Saturday multiplied this past weekend, and that was interesting. And I'm sure some of it is people, you know, who had played Titanfall just wanting to go back and get more of it now that's back on their radar game. But I'm sure there was also a number of people who went to check out the other game. And so on PC, the number of players doubled from what it typically has been on Saturdays, and on Xbox it tripled. And so that was pretty cool. And if any of our listeners have not tried that game, go check it out. It's so much fun. If you've played Apex Legends, you're gonna love the gunplay of Titanfall. And the campaign, I just cannot sing the praises of that campaign enough. It is one of the best, if not the best, campaign experience I've had. It was just such a unique campaign to run through. So many unique levels. So Respawn is just so creative. And that game on Xbox just went on sale for, I forget the exact number, but it's less than $5. So snatch that up if you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, it's worth the $5 alone just to play the campaign.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're in agreement that for the foreseeable future, the future of Respawn is Apex Legends.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. This game is awesome. So what do you expect for the future of Apex Legends itself now they've had a successful launch? What are you hoping to see? What do you think we're going to see? And do you share any of the concerns that various internet commenters have about ways that EA could possibly cause issues with this game?
No, because Respawn's always kind of done their own thing. Like, I'm not afraid of any kind of monetization model that they're going to bring. We're talking about the studio who, you know, who died on the hill of, you know, nothing other than cosmetic microtransactions in their games or being able to buy things outright. They didn't even have loot boxes in Titanfall 2. So I'm not afraid at all at whatever monetization plan they've got. I am. The only thing that gives me pause is the success, right? Like the 25 million players and just how beyond their expectations are these results, right? Because you have to imagine, like, this was so kind of, I think in order for it to not have this much of a lead up, there has to be a lot of coordination, right? Because we're not just talking about, oh, let's flip the switch, this game is out, right? You're talking about internally testing QA in your servers and the gameplay itself. You're talking about coordinating the marketing team to where when we do make this announcement and it's out, there's a full frontal assault here. Like you're coordinating in a lot of things. And so you have to imagine that there is a pretty lengthy roadmap that they've laid out for the future of this game. But was that roadmap laid out with 25 million players in mind, or was it laid out with 5 million players in mind? Was it laid out with, every decision we make is going to be placed under the microscope because of our meteoric success, or was it put in place because it was like, all right, we think we can compete in this battle royale space and find kind of our niche, right? Which is what Titanfall's always been. It's been a niche amongst a greater genre. Like that's the only thing that gives me pause is I don't know if Respawn is equipped for the success that they are seeing with this game. And I honestly don't know of the last game EA has put out that's had this kind of success either. So even with the big bucks of EA behind them, it's like, do they have the strategic people in place to be able to handle like this rush? So I guess there's my concern with the partnership with EA. Not so much that they're going to fuck this up with some sort of like predatory monetization, but just like roadmap wise, are they going to be able to accommodate this many players and keep them engaged for any kind of length of time? Because I think about like Battlefield 1 had really great success too, right? When it first launched. But the player base didn't die off, but it became a niche player base after several months of its release.
Yeah. And again, this is, great TV. I'm just going to agree with you all day long. Because I'm also not concerned about EA managing to do anything slimy as far as financial microtransactions go. For the same reason, Respawn has just demonstrated their willingness to stand up for what they want to do and to be very outspoken as they do so. Mm-hmm. When they've got an issue, we're all going to know they've got an issue. And I don't think EA can afford currently for this wildly successful game for them to try to push them somewhere they don't want to go and be dragged into the public eye. Hey, here's this slimy financial thing EA wants to do, and we're not going to do it.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. As far as the future of this game, I think we already have plenty of hints about their roadmap. I think you're right. The success is, going to present some challenges, but it's obvious that they're going to have other maps because the map you're on has a name. Mm-hmm. They've already demonstrated a willingness to add characters into the game. You can unlock characters already, but the character selection screen, you got all these little characters crammed into this tiny space. It's obvious that they've set up to add more in. It's confirmed that we're going to get that they are aiming to have cross-platform play at some point. Although they have said that there will not be cross-platform progression because that became a possibility too late in the game as far as when they were designing it, and it's not something that they can go back and add in later on for whatever reason. I'm no game designer. I don't understand.
Something with ones and zeros.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and just knowing how dedicated Respawn was to supporting the Titanfall games, in spite of the lack of success that those games experienced, I am just pumped to see what they're going to do with a wildly successful game, and with EA probably being a little more willing to throw some resources their way to keep things going. As dedicated as they were to the small base of fans playing Titanfall, I don't know exactly what to expect, but I know it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'd like to see them start rolling some stuff out pretty quick just to maximize the impact of this blast. Like, especially in the streaming world, you start releasing some new things, and streamers want to be among the first people to stream new maps, new characters, those kinds of things. Another thing that's interesting about the launch of this game, and I don't know how much you've kept up with this, is just like how quickly the esports, like the competitive scene around it, has started to form. Like, there's already 6-figure tournaments that are popping up, and there are people already reaching out to try to sign professional Apex Legends players at this moment. I think the big kicker, though, the thing to really look forward to from like just a competitive play standpoint, not an esports standpoint, is all the rumors around them wanting to have like a ranked system and ranked matchmaking, those sorts of things. Like, that's something
there's some references to that in the code also.
Yeah, and so like that's something that Fortnite's been talking about for the pretty much its entire lifespan, and it's just never came together. And so if Apex Legends beats them to the punch in that and can create a really balanced ranked experience, and like a ladder of sorts that can really help to identify who those top tier players are, like, I think that's a game changer in and of itself right there. So, yeah, it's been like shockingly surprising how quickly the esports scene of this has come together, though. Little conspiracy. Yeah. So,
Go ahead.
I mean, it's just not conspiracy, but it just goes to show you the coordination of this team working behind the scenes, and us being none the wiser. Now, whether or not those are sanctioned events by EA is another thing entirely. But and I think balancing is always like going to be an issue, but it becomes even more of an issue if you've got a big esports scene, like making sure that your game is balanced. And there are a couple things that need balancing in the game. Like grenades are entirely too strong right now, and that's definitely something that's going to need to be tweaked. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the success moving forward.
Yeah, I typically don't follow the competitive scenes on Battle Royales. Just it's something I can't get into watching. So I'm glad that you were up on all that, and that is really really cool. So yeah. So other things this may impact. How do you think this is going to impact the future of EA and the release of Anthem? And I want to throw this out there first. So last week EA suffered a huge stock drop. It was their biggest stock drop in 10 years. And then when they made the announcement that Apex Legends had hit 10 million players, it bounced back and bounced a little higher than where it had started before the big drop. So this game has already made a difference for EA, at least in the short term. What kind of difference do you think it's going to make in the long term, and especially with the launch of Anthem so close?
Dude, how fucking ironic is it that this is going to be the inverse of what happened with Titanfall 2?
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And I think that for a few reasons. Like, I think both the closed and the open beta of Anthem was pretty underwhelming for people. I think people had a good time with it, but it was one of those just like, yeah, this is fun, but it's not like the coverage wasn't really moving the needle. There were some popular streamers that were playing it, but not to that magnitude, not to any kind of like epic magnitude. And then for this game to drop, like this game is going to completely rattle the way that EA does business, right? Like there's no other real great example of EA jumping into the free-to-play world and finding any kind of like meteoric success like this. But they're going to look at this and realize that like the money here is going to be insane. Like I can see this bleeding into. I'm going to stray a little bit from the Anthem point, because with Anthem, I just think Anthem's going to come. It's going to find its niche audience, and it's going to be its thing. Like it's going to be Titanfall 2, and I think it's ultimately going to die a quick death because it's not going to have the player base to support the roadmap that they were preliminarily like hoping for. However, I do see this like bleeding over into like EA Sports and things like that. I can easily see EA coming out and being like, we're going to release a free-to-play Madden Ultimate Team, free-to-play FIFA Ultimate Team. And I've talked about this on even back in the Player 3 podcast days, that all it's going to take is one hugely successful thing for EA to just try to capture that lightning in a bottle across the board. And yeah, this is two lightning bolts in a bottle.
Yeah. I take great pleasure in what's about to happen to Anthem. just because it's obvious that once again EA tried to do the thing where they pumped the market full of EA games, and they were willing to let Respawn's game be the sacrificial lamb to hurt some other competitors. But this time, the big game they were banking on is going to be the one that pays the price, I think.
Wait, hold on. That's interesting. Do you think that's what happened?
I really feel like I might be wrong, but maybe Respawn had more say in it than I think they did. But for EA to put this game, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out from Anthem, like I feel like it was a pumping full of the market because their stock has been dropping for a while. I really feel like they just tried to flood the market like they did back during the Battlefield day.
Interesting. No. I mean, no. You're not crazy at all. I mean, I think there's some evidence possibly of some moved timelines here as well, but I think it for a different reason. I think it was Anthem's kind of middling. We're not, and I'm not talking from the closed and open beta. There's no way that these decisions got turned around, but I'm just talking like following E3 coverage and how poorly received the E3 coverage of Anthem was, and how like it wasn't receiving any of that like initial the volume of preview coverage you would expect for a game like this, and then couple that with like the failures of Destiny 2 in a lot of ways, and like how I feel like same thing with the Division 2, like there's not a lot of hype behind that game either, and so I can see them adjusting their game plan back in the fall, maybe even, to say like, all right, let's try to get this Apex Legends pushed out before Anthem to see if it sticks. That way, when Anthem flounders or falls flat, it like has kind of a flat release, we can be like, hey, look at this awesome free-to-play Battle Royale that's doing really well. And that may be too like 4D chess of EA, and your solution may be it honestly is probably more EAS, but I can see it either way.
Yeah, what you just said makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just I'm carrying around the bitterness of them yanking around 2 Respawn games already.
You bitter about something with Titanfall? No.
Yeah. So, either way, and I shouldn't say that I'm thrilled about what's about to happen to Apex. Like that's me being like, I'm thrilled that Respawn is going to have a game succeed in spite of things being stacked against them in a way that I don't think is beneficial. Like I don't think this was the greatest release window if Anthem was going to be wildly successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thrilled to see Respawn get the chance to succeed. I'm not actually thrilled to see like Anthem do badly. I never want to see someone's game do poorly.
Yeah.
Like, people worked hard on it, and the game looks cool. Just man,
Yeah.
I didn't want to see Respawn get cannibalized again.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So yeah, I think you're right. Like, as big a boost as this has been already for EA, we're going to see it change some of their practices, some of the approaches that they take to things. They're going to at least experiment with it some. And Anthem, you're right, all the underwhelming coverage, but also the effect, not the effect, the server problems during the beta. I think those sorts of things make people antsy about adopting a game day one.
Mm-hmm.
Myself included. Before I played Apex Legends, Anthem was already on I'm not buying that immediately. I'm going to wait till that game has all its bugs fixed before I jump in on it. But now that I'm hooked into Anthem,
to
it's
Apex,
probably going to be one of those things. Oh, oops, yeah, sorry.
it's all right, man. Too many A games.
But now that I'm hooked into Apex, it's probably going to be one of those things where, like, I'm going to have to see something huge for me to step away from that and give Anthem a shot. It's going to have to be a good, solid launch, and just the longer we go past launch before I get around to trying that game, the less likely I am to try the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anything else you want to say about Anthem or EA?
Nah.
Okay. So I know we touched on this last week, but now that we've gotten to see Apex in action, we've seen how successful it's been, how popular it's become. Do you think this game has any impact on the future of Fortnite or on the future of Battle Royales as a whole?
Yeah. Definitely. Now, look, I want to preface what I'm about to say with how asinine some of the coverage of Apex Legends' impact on Fortnite was this week. Story.
Fortnite killer.
Yeah, like,
Not about to say that.
what we have to understand is Fortnite has a massive amount of brand equity, has a massive player base, a uniquely diverse player base, despite what people want to say about Fortnite. And that while there may be things that impact the day-to-day successes monetarily of Fortnite and the day-to-day player bases of Fortnite, I don't think we're anywhere near a day where Fortnite becomes dislodged from the top 5 concurrent viewers on Twitch or anything like that. There's just too many popular people that play it and too many people that can't get enough Fortnite content. Like, that's just where that is. And I think the most ridiculous example of coverage I saw this week for the whole how is Apex Legends impacting Fortnite was this idea of, like, I think I can't remember where the article was from, but the headline was like, Fortnite ups its marketing budget in order to I'm laying in bed. It's like 7:30 in the morning. I open up Twitter and it's like, Fortnite raises its marketing budget because of feeling threatened because they're feeling threatened by Apex Legends. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to open this up. How do they like know how Fortnite is allocating their budget? And the whole story was about how if you search Apex Legends on Google, you will get served an ad for Fortnite. And that must mean that they're feeling the pressure. Look, guys, I don't know a lot about anything. If you want to know that, just rewind this podcast and listen to me talk about League of Legends, all right? But I work in marketing full time. That is my job. I think about it from 7:30 to 5:30 every single day. And there is nothing that says that Fortnite is feeling threatened because they are bidding on competitor branded keywords. That is literally paid search marketing 101. If you have the opportunity to outbid a competitor on their own brand terms, you are going to take that every single day, right? So it actually may mean something even like, not damning, but it may mean that Apex Legends isn't bidding on their own brand terms, which is like a big marketing oopsie. You're not supposed to do that. Any kind of paid search campaign that you build out, you want to make sure that you target your own keywords so shit like that doesn't happen. It does not mean that somebody at Epic was like, oh my gosh, guys, Apex Legends is fucking huge. Whoever's running our paid media campaign, can you go in there and update the keywords and we're going to up our budget by 10 million? Like, it was the most ridiculous, like, clickbaity coverage I've ever seen in my entire life. That out of the way. Fortnite has built their entire success on the backs of other people's success. Right? Like,
Fair
look,
enough.
there are things about Fortnite that are wholly unique to the Fortnite community, but the reason that they are even successful in the Battle Royale space is because of the success of predecessors in the Battle Royale space. But Fortnite was a survival game, like a co-op survival game that added in a Battle Royale mode after PUBG's meteoric success, right? And look, Apex Legends, same exact thing. Like, it is a Battle Royale game striking while the iron is hot on the Battle Royale genre and doing things extremely well in that spot. Fortnite is going to continue to stick in those roots and say, like, hey, here's some really cool things that Apex Legends is doing that we're going to adopt. However, there are certain things that I think they will want to adopt, but I don't know if they'll be able to get away with it. And that may be where the downfall of Fortnite comes in. If Fortnite tries to implement a pinging system, like a tag system, that's so blatantly a ripoff of Apex Legends, like that kind of coverage is the kind of negative coverage that I think could sink Fortnite. But I do think that there are things within this game that are going to inform decisions that Fortnite makes, and there will be clear ties between it and Apex Legends. I don't know exactly what those are going to be right now. Things like being able to jump as a squad. Like, to me, that's just a simple quality of life change. Like, have your team have the option of jumping like that. Like, okay, people will say it's from Apex Legends. That's fine. But it's not so big a thing like the ping system that people are just going to shit all over it, right? So, yeah, I think from a design, I guess I'm just talking from a design standpoint. I do think that there are motivations that are going to be found.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I'm not in the this is the Fortnite killer boat, but but I do think this is the first Battle Royale game that really has the capacity to be the toe-to-toe competitor for Fortnite. I didn't feel like that about Blackout, but I do think that Apex Legends could do that, and I think they could take the top spot from Fortnite eventually. That said, the differences between Apex and Fortnite, the way that Respawn has added to this genre, that you're going to wind up with two big differences. Fortnite's going to have the building system and Apex is not, and Apex is going to have the characters with different abilities, and I don't think that's something that Fortnite players want or something that will ever be woven in. And so just those two differences alone, it's going to appeal to different people. Like, Fortnite has never been a game I enjoy, and the biggest reason is because I have no desire to learn how to get good at the building system. Mm-hmm. And not getting good at the building system means I will never be good at the game. Mm-hmm. And other Battle Royale games, I mean, Fortnite included, the gunplay just isn't good. I don't think so. Like, Fortnite gunplay, I hate it. And I've wanted a Battle Royale with a really good gunplay for a while. And Blackout served that up, but not with a
free-to-play price tag.
That too, but also not with enough distinction that I was ready to jump in and buy it. But this game, it's free to play, and it's got good gunplay, and I think that this is going to hook that section of the market that did not previously get into Battle Royale games.
I want to ask this too, and if Chet wants to weigh in on this, I'm curious too. Like, why does there have to be a Fortnite killer?
Right.
Like, it's this common theme among, like, the Reddit community and the Twitter community and the Facebook gaming community, of like, hey, we need this thing to sink Fortnite. It's like, okay, who cares that you don't enjoy it? That's totally fine. There are literally 10 more games in the world, all right, that you can choose from. Like, if you don't like Fortnite, go find one of the other millions of games that exist to become a fan of. You can go and watch their streams and find personalities and watch YouTube videos and, get good at the game that you want to get. Like, what does it matter to you if all these 14-year-olds like Fortnite? And, okay, you may have to see them do the dances in a Walmart aisle while you're out grocery shopping. Like, who cares? I don't get this culture that we've built to where if I don't like something, it has to be defeated.
And there's like a real contrarian flair to it of most of the time that group is made up substantially of people who don't like it because it's successful.
Yep.
Like,
Who will be
big, I want to see it die.
who will be asking the same thing about Apex Legends in a year and a half? Like, oh my gosh, when is this gonna die? I'm sick of seeing those 14-year-olds in those caustic T-shirts.
It's like how we've been hearing since launch that Overwatch is dying. It won't be around very much longer, Luke.
Yeah. They just continue to expand their league and push events all the time, and it's dying now, totally dying.
So I don't think it'll be a Fortnite killer, and what I really think we'll see is that these two games will become the Call of Duty and the Halo of the Battle Royale genre. You had those two duking it out in the not much recently, but back in the day it was Call of Duty versus Halo in the shooter genre. And Battle Royale is its own genre. A lot of people are just thinking of it as a unique game mode or whatever, but by this point, it's a genre. And I think these two are just going to be the big competitors in it. And at the end of the day, I think that's a good thing. When you've got competition in a genre, and there's enough distinction between the two that they can learn from each other while retaining their individuality, it's just going to make each game better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be cool.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Let's move on, Larry. Great conversation, dude. 52 minutes into the show. Love it. I want to talk about Overwatch League, all right? And look, I'm not going to be bombarding us with Overwatch League topics for every week from now until the middle of July. But it starts this week. I'm really excited about it. I don't know if I've ever been this excited about anything in my whole entire life. And just keep in mind, I've graduated college, started new jobs, and gotten married. So still, this is the most excited I've ever been. And so I want us to, and Larry, you're an Overwatch League fan as well. I think this is going to be a cool conversation because you're more of like a casual fan of it. Like you watch it when you can and keep up with it when you can. And where I'm like, I'm going to watch every fucking minute of this thing.
Not only that, but you've gone back and rewatched
a lot of it. Yes, I have. But I do want to talk about, I do want us to preview some things, talk about the future of the Overwatch League, but I wanted to start with this weekend was the kind of start of the lead up to the Overwatch League with what they were calling the Community Countdown, which was not announced until last Thursday, 2 days before it was supposed to start. And look, there's a lot of things we can talk about within this, and we have a lot of ground to cover, so I don't want to focus too much on this area, but it seemed a little cobbled together. Like they were kind of getting community members together to figure out where streams were going to be hosted, those sorts of things. And the first 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, were what they advertised as practice scrimmages between the teams. And so there were 10 games, all 20 teams featured, and what were going to be practice scrimmages. And if you go over to playerversusall.com, where you will now find just tons of Overwatch League coverage from now through the rest of the season, I wrote up a little quick news piece about how those first 2 days, or the first day, because I wrote it on Saturday night, was just a mess. So when you hear practice scrimmages, you think like, okay, this is going to be an event where people come in, they're gonna compete against one another. They may not show like their whole entire hand, but they're gonna be competitive matches, as Billy says in the chat, says goats. I wish we didn't even see that. What we saw was a bunch of like meme comps and people saying that they weren't going to be showing their strats on stream because they didn't want people to be stealing them, and so they just. And they were throwing at points, like dancing off of the point so that they would lose their match because they didn't want to go to three maps. There were two particular times in the Atlanta match where the San Francisco Shock match where there was a Torb Hammer duo, which they were just trying to melee each other with their hammers while also saying hello to each other between swings. And then there was another where they were on point C of Hollywood where it was a Moira and a Winston in a room just zapping each other, and neither of them would die. They were just sitting there zapping each other, and Moira would throw her healing orb out and stay alive while she was zapping Winston. And it was just very very poor showing, right? And what was really interesting was Nate Nanzer, the commissioner of the Overwatch League, was not very. He was not very. He didn't keep his disappointment hidden. He tweeted out, this was on Saturday at 8 o'clock at night. He said, "For the final match today and all day tomorrow, we are switching to mystery heroes. I was hoping we could have some competitive maps for the community today, and I'm disappointed that didn't happen. You, the fans, are why we do this and why we have jobs. Sorry to let you down today." So, like, even the commissioner was pissed to the point where he's like, look, if people aren't even going to try, we're going to just switch this to be something fun. And, look, there are very few bigger Overwatch League fans than I am, and I didn't really watch that much on Sunday after they made this switch. So, Larry, I know you probably didn't watch any of this, but you had a chance to read the article, correct?
Correct.
So, what do you make of this? Whose side do you kind of land on? Were there coaches that are saying, like, look, we don't want to reveal strats, or fans of the league that were like, well, we wanted to see something a little more indicative of what we can expect on Thursday?
It depends on when you ask me this question. I just keep going back and forth on it. Like, I feel for the fans who wanted to, like, tune in and get that taste of Overwatch, right? Like, this is terrible. And beyond that, beyond, like, established fans, because established fans, they're going to come back and watch when the season kicks off anyway. They're just upset about this right now, for the most part. But I hate to think that anybody tuned in thinking that this was Overwatch League. I'll check it out, see what it's about, and saw that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more concerned about potential lost new viewers as a result of witnessing this debacle.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of it, like, I kind of understand, so much of Overwatch is having this new strategy, finding this strategy that puts your opponent on their heels, and they have to find a way to deal with it. And sorry,
he's dying, ladies and gentlemen.
And I understand not wanting to tip your hand on these things you've been working on in secret. So I get not playing your best. So I guess I come down more on the side of the fans the more I talk it out. I get not playing your best, but I don't think you had to, like, get into throwing territory and this nonsense territory. Like, you could have run just a normal 2-2-2, like, run something that was meta at some point. Run a dive comp that hasn't been effective in a while. Like, run something that makes sense and try with it. I think you could do that and not tip your hand about what you're actually trying to accomplish. But all around, this thing was just a loss for everybody involved in it, and it's hard for me to decide who lost more.
Yeah, I think the Overwatch League kind of hedged their bets on this a little bit, but these were not broadcast on twitch.tv/Overwatch League. They were broadcast on community members channels like Jane and ZP and some other people. So there was nobody who was clicking on the Overwatch League Twitch channel and seeing this product. So I think that there were not that many people who were watching Overwatch League for the first time checking these things out. But on this, in the same token, like, your most hardcore fans are tuning in for this, right? And I think to an extent, we've been waiting since July for more Overwatch League. And, like, I've been watching Contenders, which is just goats on goats on goats, right? Contenders is just a goats farm. But I'd have rather seen that than just what I watched on Saturday. But I think the league is to blame for it, partly because they didn't communicate their expectations of these teams going in. The season one preseason was a little more competitive, I think, for a couple reasons. Number one, it took place like a month and a half before the season actually started. So they were clearly going to be playing on a different patch once the season rolled around, so that they didn't have to hide their strats as much. And I also think, like, it's your first time out, you want to make a good showing. And so the play was a little more competitive there. There's a part of me that believes that the Overwatch League players weren't even like informed about this preseason until a week before.
Yeah.
And so I get the frustration on the players' part. I feel like there's been a large lack of communication kind of across the board for this season. And so it's on the league office as well for not communicating what it is they were wanting to see in it. And so I don't know. I don't side with the coaches as much on the whole, like, we don't want to reveal our strats. Like, look, your players stream constantly.
Yeah.
Like, I just got a notification. Muma, the main tank for the Houston Outlaws, just went live. Now, look, he's not playing with the rest of the Outlaws, and they're not running their, like, super coordinated, like, we're probably going to start to see some triple and quad DPS stuff rolling out in this meta. Like, they're not rolling that. But, like, Kai, the coach for the Paris Eternal, he was like, well, you can start to see bad habits. And I'm like, what kind of fucking Rain Man coaches are there in the Overwatch League where they're going to be able to see Muma making he does this little thing with his Winston bubble, and we're going to be able to, like, that's just not how it works. And so I don't get those arguments because there's no bad habits that would have been shown in those games that aren't being shown on stream by these players every single time they click go live on Twitch. So I don't feel for anybody in this except for the fans. Like, I don't feel for the coaches. I kind of feel for the players because they were just trying to have fun. But the league office and the coaches, like, I don't get it. But enough about that, Larry. I want to talk about what we're excited about because, look, at the end of the day, the real matches are coming on Thursday. Everybody's going to forget about this, and we're all just going to be loving that the Overwatch League is back. So what are you – the very general question, take it however you want. What are you most looking forward to this season?
So I don't keep up with this as well as you do. So I have a hope for this season, and I want you to tell me how realistic this hope is. I would like to see some variety in the team comps. Like, will I see something besides goats? And if I do, will everyone run the same new thing?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, what do you think?
Okay, yeah. Goats is definitely I think it's going to be pretty popular still in stage 1. But there's another change with Brigitte coming on where her shields are going to be they're going to go over top of I'm sorry, her armor is going to go over top of shields. So when a player takes damage, they're going to lose their armor first, whereas now, like, the shield stack on top of it. And so I think that nerf's going to be pretty big. So I think we're going to slowly start to see goats getting chipped away at. From all the coverage I'm seeing ahead of stage 1, it's that goats is probably going to be played about 50% of the time. It's going to be like a viable comp, but it's not going to be the only comp. And there is a ton of talk about triple and quad DPS in stage 1 on the current patch that they're playing on. So I think we're going to see some variety. And, going back and watching stage 1 of season 1, there was a ton of variety that was getting played there. Like, I don't know if people remember quad tank, like teams rolling quad tank with Moira on Horizon Lunar Colony. Like, stage 1 wasn't just dive either. I think these are the best players in the world with some of the best coaches in the world and all the time in the world to figure out new things. And so I'm not concerned about the diversity.
And I didn't mean to imply the whole first season lacked diversity.
Yeah.
But by the end of the first season, there wasn't a whole lot of mixing it up. And so that is what I'm most excited about, is seeing a little more diversity in what's getting played, not knowing immediately what's coming out of that gate,
So I do want to touch on some of the things S. Billy's putting in here. I don't know if that's what you were doing.
Yeah, that's what I was about to do. Go for it.
He says, as a high school lacrosse coach, it's actually fairly easy to pick up on a player's weakness. I'm not arguing that viewing a player's weakness isn't like something that you can do. I think that's absolutely something that you can do. My point is that most of these guys stream, and most of these guys play the game and have footage on them outside. These teams are scrimming against one another outside of the preseason as well, and so My point is that there's not going to be something that they see in these matches if they were to just roll 2-2-2 regular comp. Like, hey, just play your roles. You don't have to play your strategies. Just play your roles. Like, that's going to be able to be exploited. But then he says the biggest thing people need to remember is that Overwatch League meta and ladder meta are going to be completely different. While that is absolutely true, it's only true for like a week because people are going to start watching Overwatch League and be like, we're going to run quad DPS in our gold games. I'm like, have we not been already?
Yeah. So yeah, that in the broadest sense, like that's what I'm most excited about, seeing some changes in what people are running, some diversity. But I am also excited to see more teams, and so again, just it's going to mix it up even more, different matchups. I won't be seeing the same matchup over and over again like I did this past season, which wasn't bad. But I think anytime you add more diversity, it just makes it more interesting.
Yeah, and I think one thing to keep in mind is like, regardless of the meta, regardless of the patch that's being played on, there's always going to be a combination of 6 heroes that's stronger than any other combination of 6 heroes. And when the pros feel that out and figure that out, you're going to see more and more mirror comps. But what I think we're going to see a difference in is that those mirror comps will be different across maps. So while these 6 heroes may be powerful on Numbani, they're not powerful on Ilios. And so we're going to see diversity across maps where we may still see a lot of mirror compositions match to match. But I don't know, dude, I'm looking forward to more Overwatch League, man. Like I've told you and Cody this, like, I don't think I'm a huge NBA nerd, an NBA hole, as some people say. Like, and I love the NBA. I play in this really nerdy fantasy NBA league, and I have a lot of passions in my life, but I have never been into anything more than I've been into the Overwatch League. And so, I can't wait for Thursday. Luckily, I have Friday off, so I'm just, if I miss, I've got a call I've got to be on during some of the matches on Thursday night. So I'll spend some of the day Friday going back and rewatching matches, and going to be doing a lot of Overwatch League coverage on playerversusall.com. Like, I'm just excited to get the season rolling. I'm excited about all these expansion teams, and this is kind of leading into our next question about which expansion teams you're most excited to see. Having 20 teams and like starting to kind of see the league evolving into its final form has been really cool. But like, I'm really excited to see the Hangzhou Spark, because I'm just a really big fan of Gushui, their main tank. He played for Team China in the World Cup, and some of the most unique main tank play I've ever seen. Like, that whole team was just like super aggressive, and it was because of Gushui's aggressiveness. And so I'm excited to see that coming into the Overwatch League, because I think we have a lot of really great defensive teams, like teams that are really good at holding points and kind of playing slower. And but Overwatch League needs a lot more like fireworks and excitement, and I think that Hangzhou is gonna bring that. So. Are there any of the expansion teams you're particularly excited about seeing in action?
The Justice.
Oh, yeah.
I know you're not excited at all for them, but and I don't watch any of the contenders or the World Cup. I just watch the Overwatch League. So a lot of these players that are moving in, I'm not familiar with yet. I'm excited to learn about them, but I don't know anything about who's coming in. The only reason I'm excited for the Justice is that is a team close enough to where I live that I could easily go and watch a game if they ever played in Washington. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, and that's like a totally valid and cool thing, and something totally unique to the Overwatch esports scene is like, you're a huge WVU fan. Like, you're not a particularly huge college football fan, but you know more about WVU than I know about my favorite college football team. Like, because as Billy says, no love for Titans, aka Runaway. Look, I'm excited to watch the Titans play too. I do want to say this: like, a lot of people keep calling them Runaway because they were Runaway in Contenders Korea. They brought the whole roster over pretty much, and I'm just really sick of seeing people referring to them as Runaway. I'm like, look, they have this cool new branding. They're in the Overwatch League. They've taken the next step. Like, let's stop calling them Runaway, which I don't think is what S. Billy's doing here. But a lot of people are like, man, I just can't wait to see Runaway play in the Overwatch League. And I'm like, they're the Titans now. Call them the Titans. Anyway, back to localization. Like, that's another thing I'm excited to see. We've got home games being played in Dallas and Atlanta, and then LA, which is where they already play, but this is going to be like, I guess, in the arena that they're going to be playing in when they go to full local schedules. So I'm excited to see how those pan out. In fact, we have plans, if we can ever figure out when Atlanta's tickets are going to go on sale, that we're going to go and watch them play in Atlanta. So I'm excited just about that experience. But like, with the game starting to, with us having two of these hometown weekends.
Sorry. Our glitchy Moobot just dropped a topic from 3 weeks ago. So no, you're good. With these home games coming, like, do you think this is the like correct way to just kind of ease into localization and get a feel for what those successes are? What do you think they're looking for in those weekends, like Overwatch League? What are they going to consider successful? So I do think it is just the testing of the waters, making sure that this is something that's worth doing before they jump in with both feet. And I think that is a smart way to do it. And just looking at Overwatch like as a whole from the get-go, like they've built this competitive scene up incrementally from the beginning. The way the game released, the way the new facets of the game were released to us, and even getting to where we are today. So it makes sense to me to continue the slow crawl. And I think what's going to be successful is just having crowds come out and be excited to be rooting on teams in the local venues. So I know that's not super detailed, but I think that's really all they're testing the waters on.
Yeah, I also think it comes down to like ironing out logistically how it's going to work. Taking the show on the road week to week. Now, when teams have their own arenas to play in, I imagine that a lot of the setup's just going to kind of be stationary. But I still don't think that we're to the point where it's like, hey, next season fully localized schedule. I think it is going to be more of this. Let's take the show on the road, like iron out the glitches as we go. And so I think for them, success is, yes, obviously, like they want to see great fan engagement. But I think another thing is just like, how do players hold up under this, under taking their show all the way across the country for a weekend? And so I think Blizzard is showing a lot of great concern for the health and well-being of their players. And I think that's an admirable thing, especially given the scope of how they want this league to eventually run. And so I think they're just doing a test run to see, like, okay, does this put a ton of stress on our players to take them out? Can we logistically take our operation and maintain the same quality week in and week out? And then and so I think, and then also just like, hey, how excited does Atlanta get? Like, how accommodating is Atlanta? How accommodating is Dallas to these things as well? And so, gosh, dude, we better get tickets, is all I'm saying. If we don't get tickets, I will be so disappointed. Let's see.
S. Billy said, after last season, they should care way more about the health of their players.
And I think, like, listening to a lot of podcasts with coaches and stuff, like, I think they're realizing the infrastructure that needs to be in place. And we talked about this in one of our very first episodes of PvA Radio. But look, the competitive anything is stressful. And the bigger the stakes become, like, the more stressful they are. Like, but you think about the NBA, they're playing 82 game schedules. Major League Baseball, they're playing 160 games every year, not counting the postseason. And so, like, there is a massive volume of having to get up and compete every single day in those. But they have the infrastructure and the systems to be able to accommodate that. And those players are financially compensated far, far more than Overwatch League players are. And so I think as the league scales and grows, there are those things are going to fall into place. And I think in a lot of those coaching interviews I've been listening to, they're talking about like they've got sports psychologists that are, on call for their team, and like the full Korean rosters, they've actually brought in native Korean speaking psychologists to work with these players so that, they have the professional help there for them to support their mental health throughout the season. So, yeah, I think that those things are absolutely going to be better this year. And I think it starts at a team level. And obviously I think the Overwatch League can mandate some of those things, but I think the teams really saw how they wear on the players over time. So that's a change we are going to see, Larry. What are there any changes that you're hoping to see this season? Last year there were some interesting like mid-season changes where they're like, hey, we're going to let the winner of the stage pick their first opponent, like things like that. Are there any changes you're hoping to see?
I thought that was a really cool change. It did add some excitement to it. Yeah, I've kind of already been over meta changes, just seeing more diversity. That's the thing I want most. And aside from that, maybe doing some things to improve the production quality. Like it's really good already, but you've talked about how great League of Legends is, even a step above. So I hope to see them like just continuing to improve things. But as far as the gameplay itself goes, the only change that I have the foresight to even consider is the more diversity in the meta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's two things I really want to see. One I think is clear, and the other I'm going to need to do some explaining for. And then and the first thing is I want to see more stats. As a dude who loves fantasy anything, like we tried to cobble together a fantasy Overwatch League, but the more like I was digging into the system we were about to jump into, like it wasn't going to be fun because all they were doing was like reading the kill feed. So you got points for like first kill, lost points for first death, and like ult charge, like things that can be just tracked on screen. But if we can start to get more actual visibility into the statistics of these players, like, and start to really build out a fully fleshed Overwatch fantasy system, like I think that's the next step for fan engagement and excitement. So, as Billy says, Overwatch players have been crying for stats since closed beta. Look, I don't have any hopes that we're ever going to see visibility into stats for players on ladder. Like, there's a reason that they're avoiding that. However, I think there's a whole stats section on the Overwatch League website that I think they were beginning to populate last season. So we're going to get stats in the Overwatch League. It's just a matter of time into what degree we're going to get them. So yeah, we're not going to see them on the ladder. And then the second thing is I would really like some announcements around the structure of like player contracts and salaries and of the off season. Like, I think that there was a lot of messiness that happened this off season that could be avoided by transparency on how much players are making first and foremost. Some kind of a salary cap for, and I don't know, maybe teams have some sort of soft cap that they have to stick to, but a lot of coaches and like front office people that I've listened to interviews with have like hinted at some tampering that was happening with where like expansion teams had a window where they could sign players before existing teams could go. And there was apparently some, under the table deals that were going on, but just some more like structure in that regard that can add some competitive integrity. And I also think just like adding a salary cap and some transparency around what players are making can really help to level the playing field and help with scouting even to like, how do we evaluate these players and how do we know like how much their talents are going to be worth on our team to know that we're not going to say, hey, we're going to offer him a massive contract of $100,000 when another team's like, we're going to offer him a massive contract of $300,000. So, so yeah, those are the two things I'm hoping to see.
I thought of one.
Yes.
and it's still meta change. It's just more specific. I was reminded of a conversation you and I had a month or so ago, just about how the tweaks they used to make to the characters were like these minor tweaks that had a change on the game as a whole, but you rarely wound up with like dominant characters, and I think that it's a problem when like you're strengthening or weakening a character like changes the whole game, and I don't know what it would take to get back to that, but I hope to see them get back to a place where like all of the characters have some usefulness, and you don't have to run these certain characters if you want to win. And I think you're right. There's always going to be a combination that trumps other combinations, but the game needs more balance than it has had in a while, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of that balance, Larry, for the last 9 months, GOATS has been the meta. We've been talking about it, right? And it's still going to be a really large part of the meta, at least in stage 1. I think your fear with the preseason was people tuning in for the first time, right? And seeing. I kind of have that fear for people who are coming in and seeing GOATS for the first time. You don't watch a ton of contenders, so I don't know how much competitive GOATS you've watched, but it's a totally different experience than watching Dive, where it's like really focused on individual plays and the coordination in that regard. Like, look, I'm not one of those people who argues that GOATS is an easy comp to run, because it's not. Like, you can't just throw a GOATS comp out on a map and expect to win, regardless of what elo you're at. But it's so nuanced that it's really hard to appreciate while you're watching. And so, I guess my question is like, do you think if the first season is just we have to watch a ton of GOATS, it's really going to impact the product negatively, especially for people who are just coming in for the first time, or even people like you who've been watching since season 1?
I understand what you're saying. Like, I understand that it's not what a lot of gold players think it is. Run GOATS and you automatically win. It's not that easy, and people have to do their jobs well, and it does require coordination. But I do think that it's just, even when you understand that and you understand what you're watching, it's not the most exciting thing to watch. Yeah. And so I do think that if we have just a ton of GOATS, it's going to hamper the popularity of the game. Just if I'm a new person coming in, I'm not going to understand what's happening, except that there are two masses of people running at each other, and lots of things are glowing and exploding.
And then no one is dying.
Right?
Yeah.
And if I am experienced in the game, just I've beat this dead horse into the ground. I'm not interested in watching the same comp over and over.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
Yeah. I also think that just what makes sports altogether, esports, traditional sports, exciting are individual massive plays, right? Like, and you understand that a football game is not won on one 75-yard pass. You know, it takes the entire team. But those moments make it so much cooler to watch. And like, GOATS doesn't really allow that, you know, like, it's team fights, and you never, like, you see in the kill feed who got credited with the kill, but you know that pretty much everybody dealt damage that contributed to it. Whereas like, Dive is so interesting to watch, in my opinion, because it really highlights the individual player skills. And that's what makes the Overwatch League so great, is these are the best players in the world with the best mechanical skills in the world. And like, you need to give those things the opportunity to shine. And I think if GOATS is just what we're watching and it's just a bunch of people swinging and nobody dying, like, you're not going to get those exciting plays. And it's honestly going to be a lot harder to share out clips and, you know, do those things that make like NBA Twitter so popular, where like they share the dunks and the awesome passes and stuff like that. And
I mean, imagine you get a season 1 of Overwatch League that looks like Contenders right now, where it's just GOATS, and then we get to the finals and they start off with a sizzle reel.
Yeah.
What's in it?
Dude, all it is just grab bomb combos. It's the only 3Ks we could find. But like I said, I'm not super concerned about that. I think we're going to see some exciting stuff. I think another detriment is just the number of Overwatch League players that meme on GOATS and hate GOATS, and the number of projectile DPS players who just could want to go in and delete Brig out of the code altogether because they're just in Brigida hell. I think you're going to see teams make a conscious effort to not run it as often as they can. So, all right. Well, dude, we've talked for an hour and a half about 2 topics, which is pretty awesome. I did not prepare a game this week because Cody wasn't joining us, and I'm already kicking both of you guys' asses, and I want to give you the best opportunity I can to take a point off me. So we'll come back with another round of gaming two truths and a lie next week. But Larry, let's get out of here. Who are you? Where can people find you? And what are you going to be tweeting about this week if you haven't already started your social media fast?
Well, so you can find me on Twitter at LarHuntsZombies, LarHunts Zombies. But I've decided to start the first 30 days of my 30s with not engaging in social media, with the exception of I have to do it for work. And when we're doing this show, I'm going to retweet our Twitter, PvA Radio Twitter account. So I won't be tweeting about anything this week. You can go ahead and follow me, and I'll start tweeting in 30 days probably. But I might get to the end of it and not pick it back up.
Whatever. Twitter's awesome.
Yeah. If I pick one back up, it's going to be Twitter. I'm not going back to Facebook. That place is a horrible hellscape of falsehoods and stupid pictures.
Yeah, if I didn't have to do Facebook for work, I would get rid of my Facebook in a heartbeat. So, I'm Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at Hoagie_OW. Guys, Overwatch League is back on Thursday, so you know what I'm going to be tweeting about. League of Legends, what's up? All right, guys. I'm just kidding. I will be tweeting about Overwatch League. Working on my power rankings. Still haven't pushed those. Those will be out by Thursday. Also, each week on playervsall.com, I'm going to be doing a column of the 3 best matches to watch in Overwatch League for that week. This week, my match of the week, San Francisco Shock versus Dallas Fuel. Why? Right. Read about it later this week. All right. All right, guys, this is PvA Radio. Every week we get together. We have an in-depth discussion about some of the biggest gaming news stories of that week. It's a collaborative audio feature article, your CAFA, if you will. Larry, what do we tell people to do?
Tattoo that on your body.
Somewhere on your body. All right. You can find us over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio, youtube.com, podcast services everywhere. Wherever you're listening to us, subscribe, comment, leave a review, whatever. But until next week, we love you. Goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity is